Now, obviously, volcanoes are very hazardous, right? They can be very harmful to us. They can, right, not only can they kill us, they can also have a lot of very other hazardous effects. So let's talk about those, right? So of course, volcanoes can destroy property, right? The lava flows can flow over roads, they can consume houses, that's obvious. But what's not as obvious is that the gases volcanoes released can be just as deadly. So volcanic eruptions are about 50 to 80% water vapor, but they also include a lot of other hazardous gases like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, gases that you don't want to breathe in. A really great example of this is a volcano that erupted in West Africa in 1986. The volcano was above the town, and gases built up at the bottom of the lake in the crater of the volcano. And when those gases were released, because those gases were denser than air, the gases flowed downhill, down into the town below the volcano, right? It's gas, but because it's denser than air, it flowed downhill, just like a liquid would. As this gas flowed downhill and settled in the town, people were breathing in these gases, and it killed over 1,700 people in one night. The next image I'm going to show is kind of graphic, so close your eyes if you don't want to see it. But not only did it kill 1,700 people, it also killed a lot of cattle and other livestock. So this is an image of a herd of cattle that were killed overnight because of the hazardous gases that came out of this volcano. So we've talked about the flow itself can be very hazardous, the gases can be very hazardous, and the ash can be very hazardous. So when explosive volcanoes erupt, they send this huge column of ash and other debris into the atmosphere. And that ash that's in the atmosphere can block incoming sunlight, and it can also get into airplanes and block and clog airplane engines. So it can actually shut down airline traffic. So here's a picture of an airplane that you can see has been impacted by an eruption. It's got ash covering it all over it. This airplane can no longer fly because of all of that volcanic ash. And this isn't super rare. So an estimated 6 eruption columns per year rise high enough into the atmosphere to endanger air traffic. In the last 30 years, 80 modern jets were damaged by volcanic ash, and 10 airplanes have experienced temporary in-flight loss of engine power, losing height rapidly, right? So just in this past year, that's all happened. Volcanic ash plumes can be very hazardous to flights and air travel. Now, this ash is very dense, right? So after it is shot up into the atmosphere, it falls back down, and some of it falls back down a little quicker than other parts, depending on how much material is in it, how dense that material is. So a pyroclastic flow, that is when the ash and the other material like gas and debris is so heavy that it falls quickly back to Earth's surface, and it races down the slope of a volcano. So this is like a pillow of superheated air with chunks of hardened lava that is flowing downhill at rates of up to 300 kilometers per hour. That is almost 200 miles per hour. Temperatures are incredibly hot, up to 1,000 degrees Celsius. So if you are in the way of a pyroclastic flow, you are going to die immediately. And you may have heard of an example of this, which happened when the eruption of Mount Vesuvius consumed the city of Pompeii. And this was in the year 79 AD. So at Pompeii, it is famous for this volcanic eruption petrifying the town, meaning the pyroclastic flow happened so quickly that people didn't have time to run away. Instead, the people were petrified where they were. So again, I'm going to show another graphic image of petrified human bodies. So close your eyes if you don't want to see it. But this is an image, an actual image of people in Pompeii who were petrified where they stood, right? They didn't have time to run away. They were just there. And now we see these petrified bodies that are under a layer of 1.8 meters or about 6 feet deep layer of ash. And these people died through burning and through asphyxiation because they didn't have enough oxygen to breathe. All right, one of the last things we're going to talk about is tephra ash. So we talked about the part of the plume that was so heavy, it very quickly fell back down to earth and rushed down the sides. Those are the pyroclastic flows. Now we're going to talk about that other part of the plume that's really lightweight, almost like a powdery dust that can flow through the atmosphere for long periods of time. That's called tephra or ash, and it does eventually fall back to earth. But because it's so fine, it can travel very, very long distances with the wind. Okay. And so places very far away from the volcano can be blanketed in ash. It blocks sunlight, it can collapse roofs, it can cover farmland, it can impact drainage systems. This tephra, this ash that travels for long distances, can do so much disruption far away from the volcano. The last hazard we're going to talk about is what we call lapilli and volcanic bombs. And these are rocks that were erupted from the volcano as liquid, right? They came out liquid lava, but when they were in the atmosphere, they cooled down into a rock. And they can be small, lapilli are these small rocks, or they can be quite large. We call these quite large rocks volcanic bombs. And they're actually kind of shaped like teardrops because they cooled as they were falling when they were liquid. And obviously they can create great damage when they fall back to earth.